And so today we got Julian Bleeker. And so let's just dive it right in the interview. So can you tell us a little bit background what you do before Kickstarter, before you submitted your project?
Yeah, sure. So I work as a designer in a little advanced design studio here in Los Angeles, and I guess I also have always been very passionate about photography, and so that's part of the motivation. So there's just a sort of creative background, a little bit of technology and engineering background.
I see. Okay, then how'd you come with your project idea?
Yeah, it's not quite, you wouldn't necessarily guess it based on my background as an electrical engineer and a designer. But I live in Venice Beach, California.
Okay.
And I moved here a few years ago, and I came from New York City, and New York City is very different from Southern California. And so I wanted to find a way to get to know the community that I was living in. I knew a little bit about its history, and some of the history in the 40s and 50s, but obviously skateboarding is a big part of Southern California culture, and especially around here in Venice Beach and Santa Monica. A lot of the early days of skateboarding was here, and I sort of knew about that, but I didn't really know. I only knew it from what you could read in books or online or hear legends of different those early days. And I wanted to know more about this town that I lived in, but I didn't want to just go read a book or join the town council or that kind of thing. And I thought skateboarding was had enough of the California lifestyle in it, and had a lot about this town that I live in, that doing a photography project seemed like just a fun, exciting way to get to know some of the history without understanding that history just through the people rather than just through things that you read or stories that you read and that kind of thing.
Like hands-on experience, go meet those people and ask them about it. And that's great. Yeah. So all right. So how long did you work on this project before you actually submit this project into Kickstarter?
I was working on it for probably almost a full year. I sort of, in my mind, I officially started the project in November 2010. And so I've been working on it. I'm not really sure exactly where it was going to go, but it was around almost exactly November of 2011 that I decided that I would do the Kickstarter. Part of that date was just like, well, if I really want to finish the project, I have to make some very public kind of commitment to it, and like in Kickstarter makes you put down dates. Say we're going to finish at this date. This is when you'll get your reward and that kind of thing. And I figured rather than myself just telling myself I would finish it, if I told a lot of people, I would have to actually do it. So part of it was just making sure that I would finish the project.
Okay, great. So that's accountability in public.
Yeah.
That kind of, I told you how that works very well. Okay, so you decided to submit your project to Kickstarter. So what do you need to find out first before you do that?
What do I need to find out?
Yeah, what do you need to work out before? I mean, there are a few things that on top of my head. It's like how much it's going to cost to print, how you're going to get the words out, what are you going to give people, right? So can you just walk me through a little bit of that?
Yeah, sure. So I got some sort of, because I didn't have the entire book designed, I had done some prototypes. I had a rough idea about what printing would cost, and so I went to a local printer that has a good reputation for doing art books and photography books and that kind of thing. And I figured if I went to a local printer in Los Angeles, I would probably be getting prices that might be somewhere not quite in the middle, maybe a little bit higher, just because they're in the U.S. and sort of U.S. printers are generally more expensive than if I went to China or Vietnam. That I pretty much knew, so I figured, okay, that would be a rough target. And they were very helpful, just in sort of saying roughly for if you did hardcover or softcover, number of pages, all that kind of stuff. So I got a rough idea about what the printing would be, and that's basically the number I used. So it's kind of like a high-end price. I didn't do if I had more of a book design done, I would have been able to get a better sense of what the cost would be. So that was just kind of like a target, and it was a big number. And I thought, like, well, that's a big number, so I'll just put that in for Kickstarter. And the big number was $13,000, and I did that, sort of thinking that's what printing would cost, but then knowing that I would also have other rewards besides the book. So I just kind of used it as a rough figure, and a lot of it was it wasn't precise project estimating. I have to say, it was quite just sort of roughly in that territory, and I figured that if I got that, then I would find other ways, either personally or through other means, to help fund the any other costs that went above that.
Okay, so
that would,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's how you got the 13,000. You basically
Yes.
got the quote from your printer.
That's right.
Right. And then, so how did you price the book itself?
So it was a little bit of sort of trickery in a spreadsheet to say because again I didn't know how many I would have to print. It was all kind of guessing.
Yeah.
There was sort of some ideal around a certain number of books. I knew it would be their sort of breaks were around 250, 500, and then 1,000. So in there I put in a couple of columns in a spreadsheet and said, well, if the book cost this much and I did this number, how much would the printing cost, and then whatever was left over was what I knew I could pay for doing prints as well.
Got it.
And so that's how those numbers started coming together. And I didn't want to underestimate it. So basically, I just went over in a comfortable range, something that I felt would be reasonable given who I thought might be contributing and kind of where the project fell in with other projects on Kickstarter. So I did a lot of research on other, especially photo book projects on Kickstarter, to see what how much people were contributing, what people seemed to be comfortable with, and how much they were asking for.
And then you just built other rewards on top of that one, right?
Yes. So I knew the rewards would basically be initially it was like definitely the book, book plus a print.
Yeah.
And then for the lower tiers were people who I knew would want to support but maybe couldn't afford the book, where they would still get something. So I said I could do photo postcards at this price, and then there was just the $10. I want to support it, but I can't I can't do more than $10, and that's fine. So I also put that in as an option, and it was mostly that $10 option because people can contribute anything. The $10 option was a way to kind of let people know you can contribute something, and it doesn't have to be a lot, and it doesn't matter to me. Just whatever you want to do to support is great.
Great. So so you got the goal, you got the rewards. So let's talk about the video, which is one of the most important aspects of launching a Kickstarter project.
Yes.
How do you go about doing that?
It's funny because I probably spent more time and energy on the video than I have on any aspect of the project. It was a big deal, and I had a bunch of friends who were kind of helping me and sort of giving me good advice around promoting it as a social media project, and then just even technical aspects of doing videos like video with music and all these kinds of creative aspects of it, and then helping me with things like talking to artists who have music that I might like. It was a very complicated thing, and it went on for quite some time, probably at least 3 or 4 months of just thinking about it and trying different things. I probably have 3 or 4 different versions of the video, and I have to say probably 90% of that work was pure procrastination, just me trying to get the gumption and the energy to say, like, okay, now I'm going to do this. I'm going to put myself out there to the entire world around this project, and that's just creative angst, I think, more than anything else. But the last video I used is the one that you see on the top of the Kickstarter page, which has my voice doing voiceover and talking about the project. And I think it was because it was very much about me that it became just I had to find my comfort level around sharing it and finding the right way to describe the project. Once I figured out what I wanted to do, the production of the video actually went quite quickly.
How did you figure that out? That's great. That's a great point because everyone's different. Some people like to be funny. Some people like to be serious. Some people like to be inspiring, voiceover. Head up. So how did you come about finding a way that's comfortable for you when you create that video?
It was all just about being honest about where I started with the project and why I did it and how I was going about it. And I think once I focused more on my own sort of inner drive for doing the project and my own motivation and why I was passionate about it.
Yeah.
And what I was trying to do creatively.
Yeah.
It just sort of came naturally. It almost sort of wrote itself. So I was sort of writing some rough lines or sort of dialogue or not monologue that I could say about the project. And once I was able to get those words in a form that I felt comfortable about, and it just kind of came together.
I see. What I hear is just talk about it like authentically, like honestly. This is what I'm passionate about. This is what this project is about. This is why I'm doing it, and then you work your way into to come up with a script that you're comfortable with, and then everything else is kind of smooth sailing after you got that part figured out.
Yeah, that's right. It was I just felt like it was I thought people could understand the approach, and there's another element of it that I haven't quite figured out, the story of the book, which is something that now I have to figure out. But at the time, what I've been doing in the other videos was trying to tell the story of the book, which hadn't been figured out, and so I think that's why it felt a little bit kind of awkward to do it those other ways.
I see. That part wasn't clear. So when you're trying to do a video on that just didn't really work out.
Yeah. Yes.
That's great. Those are great tips. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure, of course.
Okay. So now you created video. So what are your plans before you launched the project? Did you think about how you can get the words out about your project?
Yeah, I did. So originally, it's tricky because I had to make a decision, or I had to decide like who the primary audience was.
Yeah.
For the book, and initially I thought, sort of in a kind of naive way, I thought that skaters might be the primary audience. But I sort of changed that a bit in my own mind for a variety of reasons. I guess it has a lot to do with what the book is trying to say. But I felt that what I was trying to do really was, I felt more authentic to make it into a book for photographers. So more photo book, or photo enthusiasts, people who enjoy the power of the image and the story that images can tell, and who might be the kind of person who would buy a photo book even if it's on a subject that they're not a part of that culture, that group.
Yeah.
And so that was my sort of audience, and primary audience, and then the secondary audience is skateboarders, so people who might enjoy it because they have a sort of a technical or a cultural affinity with skateboarding. Like they like it, they like to look at it, they like to make decisions about what's a good skateboard photograph, what's a good trick, or they know someone, or they know this trick, and if they know it's a hard trick and they want to say, they want to admire it because of that. Yeah. And that seemed a little bit trickier for me to do just because of the nature of the photography. So once I identified the audience, it was I started looking at primarily, of course, you start with friends and family, people who would get behind you and support the project. And I already had like a fairly extensive list of almost 1,000 people who I would call, friends is always tricky because do you really have 1,000 friends? But people who I've worked with in the past, I've collaborated with on projects. Yeah. We've been part of project teams in various either creative or technology projects that we've done. Family, extended family, and then just friends who maybe don't know that I'm doing this project, but I thought would be at least intrigued. And so that list gets quite big rather quickly. And then I added more like sort of industry people, both in skateboarding, but then also in the photo book industry.
Are these email lists that you're talking about, like emails that you have that you gather over the years, or are you talking about social media like Facebook or Twitter?
It's mostly email.
Mostly email.
Mostly email.
Got it.
And then the social media comes in, and there ends up being a bit of overlap. The social media, it's entirely, it's sort of tricky because there's like a lot of people, I've spent several years either purposely or sometimes inadvertently sort of building a bit of an online kind of personality, and that is it's very much focused in in a narrow sector of like the online world, which is mostly like technology, innovation, design, and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to be careful about how much I communicated to that audience, because this project would be a very unexpected thing from me for them. And so I sort of almost deliberately created a different set of profiles in the online media world. So the photo project has an entirely different, it's got a Facebook page that almost has nothing to do with me, Julian Bleecker. It has a Twitter profile that has nothing to do with me, Julian Bleecker, unless you dug down a little bit and saw like, oh, this is Julian's project. And so I deliberately chose who would be, on these lists in such a way as to not, I guess, create confusion or make it feel like this is, because it would just raise some questions like, oh, so what are you doing now, or have you stopped doing, have you quit your job?
I understand. I mean, people had like who you are, has like a view of who you are. If you all of a sudden do something, kind of outside that, maybe people may question. So what I'm hearing is that you are basically targeting the people that fits on your existing network, separated by different lists or category, like email, combining email and Facebook and Twitter. And okay, so you basically, this is talking about getting your work project out, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So you're gathering your existing network, the email list and things like that. So what did you do with that? Did you tell them beforehand, before the project, or did you wait until you launched the project and then you tell them what you do?
Yeah. Well, for those lists and all the social media stuff, I basically, so specifically on Twitter, I had started basically, trying to find followers and letting people know about the project pretty far ahead of doing the Kickstarter thing. So once I realized that would be a great way. So that was probably, like a while, like maybe even like 4 or 5 months before.
4 or 5 months before, because you started a new thing. That's basically a new Twitter account that you need to build.
Yes, a new Twitter account.
Is that what you mean? So you start building followers 4 or 5 months in advance for Twitter. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah, and then the same thing with the website. I created a email subscription list so people could subscribe from the website. So all those things were done quite far in advance of the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter idea was still, I wasn't entirely sure that was what I would do. So it was just just doing good social media kind of due diligence, building a community, letting people know what you're doing, sharing aspects of the project to get people engaged and sort of like enrolled and wrapped up in it and that kind of thing. Yeah. Which included, of course, the Facebook page.
Facebook page, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And so, sorry, what were we talking about?
So we're talking about. This is in the part before, because I'm interested in like what. So these are pre-launch work that you did put in before you launch your project, because you need to get the word out.
Right.
So you already started building your Twitter, Facebook, and your email list specifically for this project. Wait 4 or 5 months in advance.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So can I ask, like, when you had your project launch, how many people are following you on Twitter? How big of a network did you build on your Twitter, Facebook, and your email list?
Yeah, on Facebook at the time, I think there were maybe like 500 or 600 subscribers, likers.
Likers, yeah.
There were just a few hundred Twitter followers.
Yeah.
And that email list, which is something that, so there were 2 email lists. One was subscribers who came to the page sort of organically, and that was very few. I think there are like only maybe 20 or so.
Yeah.
And then to that list, I added my own sort of list that I've been carrying around for years of people who I thought should know about the project.
Yeah.
And so that list grew to a bit more than 900.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was essentially what I had to work with, just to, notify people about the project and what I was doing and that sort of thing.
Okay, great. So these are so is there anything else that you did before you launch your project?
Yeah, a lot of it was just face-to-face, word of mouth. Just letting people know who I see when I go out on a photo shoot, or I made another thing. I think this is quite interesting. It's particular to this kind of project, is that I'd made a couple of these prototype books that I had printed. Just one copy, but hardcover bound, and then another one was softcover. And I would actually bring those around with me.
Nice. Check it
when
out.
I went to events, and I would show them to people. And there's some wonderful people who I met sort of that way, and who found out about the project. And there's something about it that when you have something tangible and real, that they they're like, oh, you're serious. It's not just like a thing appearing on a screen.
Yeah.
So that actually helped a lot, to have a bit of it was kind of a prop to talk about the project to people too.
So you're already talking to people about the project on beforehand. This is not, you're not telling people, are you doing a Kickstarter yet, right? Or
no, that's right. Yeah.
You basically just telling people about this thing that you're working on, that you're passionate about. You're not mentioning about come to Kickstarter, fund me, kind of thing like that. You're just kind of telling me, okay, great. So anything else you want to add in before? Because I'm interested in all the pre-work done before you launch, because a lot of people don't understand how much work actually takes to actually do this, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to add before you launch your project?
There's a lot. Well, maybe there's a lot of like mental preparation as well. Just
right. Yeah. What are they?
It's that preparing yourself essentially for rejection. Yeah. And it's just a little bit of a mantra I got from a dear old friend of mine who's also who's a creative person, is that don't think about it as doing these things as accumulating rejection, rather than like going for success. And that way, it's not preparing yourself for failure so much as saying, like, the more you put out there, that's a good thing. So don't expect everything to be a big success, and that if something fails or gets rejected, it's not a sign of your inability. It's more a sign that you're putting things out there, and that's good. It's better to be out in the world and doing things than to just sort of be sitting in your studio not doing things and not sharing them with the world. So that was one thing I was like, okay, this might not work, and if it doesn't, that's fine, absolutely fine.
Wow, that's big. I think I think what you just said right now reflects everything that you told me before the last 20 minutes. Basically, that's what you're doing. You're just putting more things out there. You don't know how it's gonna turn out, but you're just gonna. It's good that you're doing work. You're moving forward.
That's right.
I see. I got that. So thank you for sharing that. Okay. Sure. So tell me about the launch date. So you about to launch. How do you feel?
Yeah. I felt there was a lot of it felt good. I launched it very late at night, which maybe wasn't the best idea. But I think
like 1 a.m. or something.
Yeah, it was. it was a kind of do it or die kind of thing, and I didn't sort of backtrack the time, but it just kind of happened that it worked out that it would end at the beginning of 2012, which I thought was nice and sort of poetic in a way, but that was entirely accidental. I had been preparing, like the Kickstarter. They let you can edit the project for as long as you want, and at some point you just click the button. And I guess I had been probably working on that. I set it up as a kind of as a template to work on for probably 2 or 3 weeks. So I would go and sort of look at it and then kind of refine it, and then I'd get sort of prices for things, and I'd try different things, and talking a lot to some wonderful friends who are very helpful and very sort of thoughtful in a very strategic way. Who have they've either been following Kickstarter projects in order to understand how they work, or they have experience because they've backed a lot of projects and they could offer some good advice. And so a lot of that was just kind of cobbling and sort of wordsmithing the language and all that kind of stuff. And then I thought it was all done. It looked good to me. I reviewed it one more time, and then I clicked the button, and that was it. And it's a funny thing. It's just like I realized, and one of the things I should never do things like this at so early in the morning. But I'd actually I did the rewards all wrong. I realized the next day. which put me into a little bit of a panic because I remember I was in a meeting at work, and someone had did one. I was like, oh, that's great. And I was like looking at the email just for a moment, which I shouldn't have been doing because I was in another meeting. I looked and I was like, oh, wait a minute, that's the wrong. That's not what I meant for that reward. And by that point, it was too late because enough people had gotten the reward that I was like, oh well. So it was, it was one of those things where I probably should have copy edited it one more time or had someone look at it besides me. That's all right.
Because you can't change your reward once you set it, right?
That's right.
You can add new rewards on a different thing, but you can't change it when you first submit it.
I think you can only you can change it as so long as no one has requested it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, but then once that happens, it gets locked in. But
they beat you to it.
Exactly.
All right. So what did you? So now the project's launched. So what did you do to get your words out?
Then I did a couple things. I contacted some friends who have huge followings on Twitter and that kind of thing, and who were quite a bit of a thing on the internet, and they've known about the project for quite some time. They're close friends, and so they said, I'll help you get the word out. I'll spread the word and that kind of thing, and I'll get behind the project. And so that was the first thing, was basically just to call a couple friends up and say, like, look, it's launched, it's happened. Can you just do a blast out to your networks?
Yeah.
And that was really helpful because that kind of got that initial momentum going.
Yeah.
And then along with that, I had my email list, so I sent a blast out on the email list, and that was another thing when you spend some time sort of describing the project in an email and putting a couple images, and then also because that email list had a little bit of crossover with people who wouldn't expect this from me, just a small bit of an explanation, like, I know I do these other things, but this is another passion project that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I kind of got into this mode where I was going to be very sort of politely aggressive and relentless, and I knew that this wasn't the kind of thing where, oh, I'll put this out there and then the internet will take care of it. I knew that I had to be the prime engine behind it, and I had to be a little bit of a nudge, just kind of like a little bit of an annoying kind of friend to my friends to say, and just keep after them, basically just be over their shoulder all the time, because I know I knew it would take a while. I know people and just sort of their, how people are, is that, yes, I want to do this, but there's this other thing now that just popped up on my computer, I'm going to pay attention to that. And so it's this kind of thing like, look, just move the mouse button over a little bit, click the button, click submit, and it's done. And so just being annoying, I guess, to people in a polite way, just kind of, just a reminder, let you know.
I see, and that's great because I think because the internet's not going to take over and just you're going to sit back and the cash is not rolling in. It's not going to happen. You're the driver of your project because no one else is responsible for your project, right?
Yes, that's right.
So I got that. So you went to your friends and you went to your email list, and what you do with social media?
Social media, like on it's sort of the same thing. Like on Twitter, I would just send out a message. I had a little canned message that I would send out, and I knew that, again, a little bit different from email. People don't always catch a Twitter message just because it sort of moves very quickly. So I sort of got into the rhythm of doing it maybe like once a day, just sending it out. And it was just like a little message with a link. Obviously, a little message is Twitter, with a little link that people could click on. And then the same thing on Facebook, probably less frequently. I would do a little update just to remind people about the project. And there was reasonable bit of traction on that. I think in Facebook was probably the one mechanism, and maybe it's just because of the analytics that you can get, where I could see that it was being talked about, just because of the way people share and reshare and that kind of thing. And I would sort of boldly send it into various skateboarding groups that I was a part of, it would sort of pop up, and then people might reshare it or like it, and those are ways in which that kind of message keeps circulating and kind of stays up there and out there.
Okay, got it. So you continue. So you're saying that you continue to do these on Facebook and Twitter?
Yep.
But not email lists, right?
The email list was I tried not to do it too much.
Yeah, that doesn't work, right?
No, so I would do it. I did it pretty much every time I was getting ready to do an update on the Kickstarter, which was I think actually I don't know how many updates I did. I think I did 6 or 7.
Yeah.
So basically on the email list, they would get it was the strategy was to send out to the entire list. So my entire list of friends. And then I kind of winnowed the list down by about a third, so down to maybe like between like 350 people who I counted as like close friends.
Yeah.
And so that in that list of people, I would send out the message, and then I would manually remove people from that list, remove from the dear friends list. I would remove them when they gave to the Kickstarter, so that they didn't get the message again. Because my thinking was that if they contributed, they would get a message from Kickstarter every time I did an update, and that would be enough. And I figured once they contributed, I was going to stop bothering them on email, but they would still get a message from Kickstarter, because now at this point they have a financial and kind of like emotional investment in the project, and the Kickstarter update was enough. And so that email list just started getting a little bit smaller, one person at a time, as they either unsubscribed themselves or I unsubscribed them and they made a contribution.
So the people, I didn't know this, like, so people who actually pay the money, like pledge back to you, whenever you update on your project, they get an email for your updates automatically?
That's right. If they have the option of getting the update or not, but typically they would get the update by email if they've backed the project.
Okay, so that's great. So it's very clear. Is there anything else that you did to promote your project?
I think that was the main thing. It was a couple of times there were maybe just a little text message to someone, or like a personal email to someone. Yeah. To which obviously different from the email list. So just send a personal note. I think I did that maybe for a dozen people who I really, really wanted to let them know about the project, and I realized that for any number of reasons they might not know about the project. So I had one good friend who it was kind of a funny, awkward moment where he unsubscribed from the list. Yeah. And I thought, like, God, that's really weird. And initially my reaction was quite emotional. I was like, God, I'm hurt that he doesn't want to hear about it. And so I sent him a text message and was like, I was really sorry. I just need to clarify why you did you unsubscribe? And he said, I'm sorry. He said, I looked into it. I'm sorry, I didn't unsubscribe. My assistant unsubscribed me. And so the assistant didn't know it was a personal, sort of a personal plea from a friend in that. And so he apologized, which was very nice, and then made a generous contribution. And so that you realize that some people. I'm not sure if everyone got the email, to be honest, because of just spam filters, or it just goes into the wrong folder because it looks like looks like spam and that kind of thing.
How did you send out your emails? Did you use just Gmail, or how did you do that?
I use MailChimp.
Use MailChimp. I see. You from other interviews that I did, you can check if, from what I understand, I don't use MailChimp, so people told me that you can check if it's in spam or how many people opened it. Did you actually check that?
Yeah, there was. I did some initial. Yes, that did happen. There were some bounces for various reasons. Either the email address was wrong, or it went into spam. And then there are ways that you can test and refine your message to make it less spammy. Yeah. And I sort of did those things initially. You can also check to see if a message was actually opened. Yeah. And I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, just because of email clients get a little bit more sophisticated about maintaining someone's privacy around that stuff, which I totally understand. I see. And so in those cases, I kind of went through with a fine-tooth comb and fixed email addresses, or in cases where MailChimp was telling me messages weren't being opened, and maybe they were. I just didn't know. That's when I would just send out personal emails to friends, or just talk to them when I saw them in person. Hey, did you get that one thing? And that kind of thing. So it's really, I guess the point is that it's a very surgical process. It's very, you're going down to individual people, especially at this level, to to make it a success.
Totally, because every one of them are your potential someone that could back your project, or tell a friend that they'll so I hear that you're treating them with care.
Yes, yeah.
That's what's needed. So that's great.
Yeah.
And so when I contacted you to do an interview, you are about at least 5,000-6,000 away.
Yeah.
For your goal, right? And then I think a week later I checked, and then all of a sudden you reach your goal. So is there anything different happened, or you just continue to do what you told me to do, what you just said you're doing, or is there anything different that you did?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely that. There was a bit of a slump, and I just kind of kept at it. There was a point where I felt like, I remember sitting with a friend over lunch, and he asked me, he said, so where are you at? And I said, I'm about, I think at this point, maybe I was like, I guess like $6,000 away, so I was around $7,000, and it's just kind of like, oh, it's not going to happen. There's no way. I mean, that's just so much money. Basically, I'm just a little bit more than halfway with only, 21 days or something like that. It just seemed impossible. And especially if you take the number of days and divide it by how many dollars, you're like, oh, if I get $200 a day, and you're like, $200 a day, that's completely crazy. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I really felt that, but I just kind of kept my game face on. It's like, no, we're going to do it. And I have to say, in particular, two very good friends who just said, like, no, it's no problem. You'll succeed. And one friend of mine who's sort of like my sister was like, she said, look, every project that I've backed has succeeded. I don't know what it is, but that's just happened. I backed your project, so don't worry about it. And so I just kind of went with that. It'll just happen. And there was a couple more email pushes, and then I guess people helping to spread the word. I don't know what happened. There were a couple of very generous contributions from some people who have been following the project for some time. So they gave in the top tier of the contributions, and that was, I don't know if it's a momentum thing. And then there were some people who had already contributed, who basically upped their contributions, and I'm not sure what the psychology is of that, other than maybe they're like, I really want this to happen, and so I'm going to just give a little bit more. And it was enough of those kinds of things happening that things kind of went over the top. And then a wonderful, when I was only, I mean, it was like $200 or so to go, which was just before Christmas. Some friends who had already contributed, basically two friends basically just took $13,000, which was the goal, subtracted how much was left, and basically between them split the difference.
Wow, that's nice.
To put it over the edge right on Christmas, which was super nice.
Wow. So how did it feel when it's over the edge on Christmas?
There were two things that were thrown out. One was kind of like, awesome, like totally did it. There was along with that was a little bit of a okay, so now I have to actually figure the whole book thing out. So it was like, now I have to find a designer, and all those kinds of things went through my head. And there was also a bit of just because I've been so invested in working on the project and doing so much work in this, like every day, like looking at it, thinking about what I can do, how I can continue to spread the word. Should I do another update? I should go out and shoot someone and get some new images, and people will see that and they're like, oh, it's active and it's rolling. And then I didn't have anything to do. And so it was almost like just a twinge of kind of, I wouldn't say depression, but just kind of like, oh, what should I do? And so I just got on my bike and went for a bike ride. I couldn't think of anything else to do with the project. And so that went through my head. That was the big thing. I have to say there was one bit of anxiety that went through my head, which was I didn't actually know how Kickstarter works. So I saw we were over $13,000. It was like $13,000.23, and I didn't know if I had to be above $13,000 at the end of the campaign, because one thing happened during the campaign which was entirely fine was that someone lowered their how much they backed, which you're allowed to do, which is totally fine. I don't begrudge someone for doing that. It's just you get to the end of the year and finances like, okay, I can do, rather than 150, I can do 60. I still get the book, and that's good. It's fine. And I realized things can go backwards. And so I
Yeah.
started panicking. I was like, if suppose I get to the end of the campaign and I'm at $12,999 instead of 13, does that mean I still get the Kickstarter? So I started getting a little bit anxious about that, and I actually started, just being who I am, I started looking at what the rewards were, and it's like, okay, how many people could back out, but I would still make the reward? I'm not sure. I still don't know if, in a day or so, what that means. I was going to think about, writing Kickstarter just to ask them. I don't know if anyone knows.
Maybe, like as you said earlier, put your game face on. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And then keep going, man. Yeah. So, I mean, you got like 2 days.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
2 days to go. So hopefully people watching enjoy this interview and like your project and can go and check out your project, and they like it, they can back your project.
That'd be fantastic. I'd love that. Okay,
great. So, all right. I think that's. Is there anything that you want to share? Anything else that you want to add? And what that you add?
I guess it's just to say, like, just words of encouragement. I guess it's better to do it than not. And I guess I've seen the statistic that you put together that I guess from Kickstarter that less than half of the projects get funded, which I think is fine. I think there's it's better to do it and fail and learn from that failure and just kind of keep pushing on. I know a number of projects have done that where they just kind of reassess what they're trying to do, or they get a better sense of what it's almost like you can prototype your Kickstarter, just do an actual Kickstarter. Sometimes I guess there's a little bit of a funny thing around Kickstarter, because a lot of it, at least the big projects that I see, are typically ones where people are selling. Basically, they're taking orders for small manufactured, bespoke kind of products, and so you see these really big numbers. Effectively, they're just taking lots of orders for small things, which is very different, I think, from a project like doing a photo book like I've done, where the scale is entirely different. So I think it's just a matter of, even if you see someone getting $100,000 for a Kickstarter project, it's really understanding what your project is and what the scale of it is and what's most appropriate for what you're trying to do. So I think there's just a lot of thinking that goes into a lot of planning, which there should be. It shouldn't be like a fast and loose kind of internet thing where you just put it out there. I think doing a little bit of strategy and a little bit of treating it as a proper business proposition, because it is commerce, it is money, and people are you're making a commitment to people who back you. Yeah. And that's why I'm doing this interview and putting all these great ideas from you, all these lessons learned in one place. Yeah, that's the project I'm creating. Awesome. And so one last question. So what are your biggest thing that had what are maybe a few biggest thing that had you successfully fund your project? I would say one was just being relentless about promoting it and doing it what I thought was in a thoughtful, humble, but relentless kind of way. So trying to avoid being too spammy. I had one person say it's just too much spam. I didn't think it was spam. I thought it was to get an email from someone who once every 6 to 10 days, I thought was the good level of promotion. And then just being being thoughtful and thankful to the people who did support you, I thought it made it more comfortable for me to continue the project, just to give a really kind of honest, heartfelt thanks to people, because they are basically getting behind something. And then having people around you as sort of informal counselors / managers of the project, because working on something individually, especially given at that scale, is probably not the best way to go about it. It's always good to do it, to have other people to kind of edit you a little bit, because there's sometimes when you can sink into a little bit of a dark place and get depressed about it, and just say no, it's okay, just keep going. And so I think I would say those are the three big things: having people around you, working really from the heart and being honest about it, and then just managing the scale of things in a way that feels right and appropriate to the project. Wow, awesome! Thank you so much, Julian. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for. I think that's it. So thank you so much for being with us, and
and I wish you all the best of luck. You still got 2 days. So thank you so much, Julian, and I'll talk to you soon. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
You're waiting to do that the whole time. All right. See ya.